I know exactly what he's talking about when he talks about the swarms and the like. Great piece, great piece. It's great to be here. I'm supposed to be talking about travel writing. I could be spend the evening talking about the golden ages of travel writing, but that would take all night. So what I'm going to do instead is just tell you a couple of stories. They're true stories, and they happen to be high points of my life on the road. The first one takes place in North Korea. It happened 20 years ago. I went into Pyongyang from China, and with a group of 5 of us. There were a couple of ladies from the Beijing German embassy, and a couple of chaps who worked in Shanghai, and me, and in we went. And I worked for the Observer at the time, but the one thing you couldn't tell them was that you were a journalist. So I told them that I was a retired English teacher, and so every time I took my notebook out and they went, "Oi," I was able to say, "Look, when I get back home, I'm going back to the school where I used to teach, and I'm going to tell the children about your wonderful country." So that was sort of all right, but they kept peering over my shoulder. You know, is he actually writing about gun emplacements? Is he writing about launch vehicles? But the high point of that particular trip, one day they sent us out of Pyongyang to a new harbour development many miles away. There was a souvenir shop, and the only things on sale were plastic washing bowls and stuffed pheasants, dozens and dozens of stuffed pheasants. On the way back, we noticed that there were little groups of people sort of waiting on the roadside. And we said to the minders, "What are they doing?" And they said, "They're waiting to applaud a letter. A very important letter is being sent up this road today to our dear leader, Kim Il-sung. And their job is to clap. They are there to applaud the letter." And we drove on, and we came to the largest group of all, 20 or so, and they were all women. And we said, "We've got to stop now." And the minder said, "No, no, no, no." And we said, "We've got to stop." So we did. And we got out of the car, and the minder said, 2 minutes. And the women all came towards us. They weren't welcoming. They were curious. We were people from another planet. I noticed that they were malnourished, and they had terrible teeth. And I had to remind myself that these women and their families, for quite lots of lengthy periods of time, the only thing they had to eat was grass. Anyway, they stood before us, and one of them had a drum, and she beat a little rhythm on the drum. And the woman standing before me looked at me, and then she did that, opened her arms. So I opened my arms, and we danced. And the whole thing, everyone joined in, we all danced, and we were there for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Our minders were going absolutely crazy, and I thought they're going to machine gun the lot of us. So we got back in the vehicle and we drove back to Pyongyang, but it was one of the most enduring memories of my travelling life, those women. And when I consider what's going on in North Korea at the moment, I think of them. I really think of them. I mean, the basket case who's running the country at the moment, we're confronted with that basket case, and then the Americans have their own basket case, was determined to blow the North Korea off the face of the earth. And I think of those women, often I wonder what's become of them, and I wonder if they're still alive. Probably not. Life expectancy for the women of the country was very low. That was the Korean story. The next story, it's about who becomes travel, right? You should ask your son about this. Who becomes travel? You've got to be curious, you've got to be restless, and possibly slightly deranged. I don't know. But my restlessness came from, my second story concerns the place of my birth. It's called a group of islands in the Southwest Pacific called Vanuatu. And I was born there. And at the age of 5, I was moved to Australia. At the age of 7, I was moved to the Fiji Islands. At the age of 10, I found myself in the UK. And a year later, I was back in Australia. So restlessness was sort of part of my DNA, if you like. And so travel writing was something that seemed entirely normal to me. And I remember one of my earliest childhood memories was walking through the capital of Vanuatu. Vanuatu, incidentally, do you know where it is? If you jump into the sea off Queensland and you swim east for 1,500 miles, you get to my islands. They're very beautiful, they're very volcanic, and very remote. And one of my earliest memories is walking through the capital, Port Vila, the tiny little capital, all tin roofs. And we came across a group of islanders, woebegone looking people, in shackles. They were being escorted. And I said to my dad, what's going on? And he said, they're going to prison. And I said, why are they going to prison? And he said, they're cannibals. And that led to the question of Vanuatu being Vanuatu, which prison are they going to? Because there were two. There was a French prison and there was a British prison. Vanuatu was a condominium. It was a colony run jointly by Britain and France. Condominium, the locals called it pandemonium. Everything was duplicated. So 2 prisons, 2 court systems, 2 postage systems, 2 sets of coinage, 2 sets of everything. 2 hospitals. My dad, a doctor, ran the British hospital. And then years later, they got independence. The British had been longing to get rid of the place for years, but the French wouldn't let it go, because deep down, the French are real colonialists. It's their dirty secret, and they were very reluctant to let Vanuatu go, but eventually they did. And I went, I was sent by the Observer with a photographer to go and cover this momentous event. And we flew to Port Vila, and then we flew down to the island of Tanna, which is famous for the fact that it's got the most extraordinary volcano. It was hurling rocks into the air, 300 feet into the air. And on our first morning, we started chatting to an Australian who owned plantations. He owned a coconut plantation on Tanna, and he had a few cattle. And he said, what are you doing here? So we explained who we were, what we were doing. And he said, there's someone you should meet. So he put us into his Land Rover and took us deep into the jungle to a very, very remote village. We got there and he said, wait here, I'll be back in a second. We got out of the car and waited, and a moment later he reappeared with the village chief. And a very distinguished looking man wearing nothing but a penis sword. And the chief was carrying a huge gold-framed photograph of the Duke of Edinburgh. And I sort of said, what's this? And the chief said, this man is our God. We worship this man. We want him to come and live with us. And I said, well, that's very interesting. And then he made a signal, and half a dozen very pretty little girls came out, sort of early teens to mid-teens, wearing nothing but the grass skirts, And the chief said, and these will be his wives. And I said, he said, look, they will look after him. And they will make him very, very happy. And I said, you know, he's already got a wife. And they said, yeah, we know about her. We know about her. She can come too, but if she comes, she has to work like the other women in the yard. And we learned later that the photograph had been given to the chief by a senior British official who was actually teasing the French. Anyway, we got back to London, and the piece appeared in the Observer colour magazine, with photographs, and it was, of course, a sensation. I spent the next 48 hours going from studio to studio giving interviews, and I was told that it was well received at the palace. The nice thing is, there was even a rumour that the Duke actually got in touch with me. And if I wonder what the message was. You know, if you're expecting, you don't hold your breath. But anyway, so that was a good moment. And just one other thing about travel writing. There's the travel writers canon. This is the thing that you're eternally dealing with. You go to a new place, you've never been there before. Go out to dinner on your first evening, and you get lucky. You meet somebody who speaks wonderfully about the country, history, its culture, its personalities, its politics, and you go to bed happy, having filled pages and pages of your note. And then next morning, you get up, get on a train, and you go off somewhere else. But on the train is actually virtually empty. It is going through immensely boring countryside. Now the question is, can you take the person you met the night before, him or her, and move him or her onto your train, so that the wonderful things that you heard the night before can somehow be spilled over into the coming day? The answer is, you bet. Of course. Well, your main role is to keep your reader entertained and interested. And if you have to everything has to be true, but if in telling the truth, you have to somehow rebalance things, perfectly all right. Okay, thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure to have tonight Susan, Alex present. Our next event is in 2 weeks' time. What I like to call Kingston Boat Club is Kingston Yacht Club. It sounds pretty dubious, but it is Kingston Yacht Club on the river. Please come and join us for an event with Tony White, the favourite novelist, and some great speakers from Kingston University. Thanks again for spending your evening with us tonight. Good night.